Hello, girls. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're listening to this. I'm here today to talk to you about the new society of post-revolutionary France. We're looking at the year 1792. Now, I think 1792 is an interesting year. As you can see, I've got 1792 next to it. I've got listed an interesting year. I was thinking about calling it perhaps an underrated year, much like Coldplay's fourth album, but I've gone for interesting year. I think 1792, we see a bit of a bridge. If you have a look at the first image there, look at the Three Estates forging a new society. It was going well, wasn't it? Yes, 1790, pretty good. 1791, few things started to fall to go wrong. The wheels came off the wagon. So 1792 is kind of a bridging year between, of course, when the new society is doing well, and then of course before the terror of 1793 and 1794 takes hold. And a lot of events happened in 1792. So I thought I'd just go over a few of them with you today. Here is, of course, the study design. You can see there are 4 points, which tells us what we need to know for area of study 2. I've just pulled a few things out of there. Of course, the most important thing is that the outbreak in course of war, so that happens in 1792. There's some other things there, internal divisions and hostility of foreign powers, but obviously the war is the culmination of this hostility. There's changes in political, social things, okay, and then of course everyone has to compromise. Revolutionary ideals, we've spoken about how the initial aims of the revolution were to make sure that there wasn't a tyrannical, oppressive government, reflecting, of course, the issues that France had pre-revolution under the old regime, the ancient regime. And, of course, during the course of the war, they have to betray many of these revolutionary ideals. Individuals, so Danton pops up, and, of course, good old Lafayette. They're very significant for 1792. What else? Okay, so diverse experiences. Yes, of course, we need to think the urban workers, they become more and more powerful in Paris. What's going on with the rural peoples as well, who don't necessarily like the direction that the Parisians are taking the revolution. And of course, they're the nobility that flee, okay, and literally declare war on those that are within Paris, okay, join sides with the enemy. This guy here too, Dumouriez, I think that's how you say it. I apologise if I haven't got that right. He is, of course, a French general, and he's fighting for the revolutionary cause at this point in time. Okay, he's famous because he gets the first victory, but we'll come to that later on. So, events of 1792. So, what I've gone through, lifted from Alpha History the different events that they've got down, and I've got about 3 or 4 on each page, and I'll point out the most significant ones. Okay. First of all, you look at that start of the year, they call it the era of liberty. Okay, it's just so very interesting when you think about where this year ends for France. Okay, food riot breaks out, not that significant. The most significant from here, I think, is that all property of those nobles that have fled and are now going to join the fight with the Austrians and the Prussians, whoever else wants to jump on board, and others do later on, that now belongs to the nation. Why do we declare their property as property now of the French Republic? Anyone? Have a think about it. Okay, so we are now heading towards March. Okay, and then I just wanted to point out, in particular, the start of March, the king appoints a ministry. Okay, dominated by the Girondins, led by Brissot. The Girondins are a very significant political group. We're going to see the terror takes kind of like many forms. Okay, that there's those within politics that get attacked or suffer or like Brissot are actually executed as a response to this terror. I don't want to get into that too much, but know that there's kind of like the political terror as well as other terrors which occur. I also want to just point out here quickly, while I have a chance, that the king appoints a ministry. How much power does the king have at this point in time? Anyone? Yeah, the answer is not much. So when we say the king appoints a ministry, I'd say that this group has risen in popularity, have the most kind of political control. Okay, so I don't think the king's like, oh, this group would be great. But nonetheless, the king appoints them. As we can see, April 20 is the most significant date. You do need to remember this date. This is the date, of course, where Louis declares war. Okay, on, as you can see, Austria, Hungary, and Bohemia. Okay, Bohemia's modern day Romania. The Assembly votes to declare war. There's only 7 people that dissent. And actually, such a significant date in all of history. Must be any of what we call the French Revolutionary Wars, which turn into the Napoleonic Wars, which turns into the Franco-Prussian War, which leads to World War One, which leads to World War II. It's so significant right now, the French Revolutionary Wars. And a lot of people make the mistake and think that Austria is the one that declares war on France. It's the other way around. Okay, and we've spoken about this in class, but Louis is the one who declares war with the support of the Assembly. Okay, we can skip the next one that just talks about some of the king's ministers. I don't think it's too significant. Okay, that's Brissot, by the way, or what's his engraving of him. So we're now heading to June. Okay, the first point there is somewhat significant. You can see Lafayette asked the Assembly to outlaw Jacobin clubs. Okay, why? Why is that significant? Well, perhaps they're growing too powerful, they're too radical, they pose a serious threat. Look, by the way, who is actually suggesting that they be outlawed. But June 20 is very, very, very significant. Okay, this is where the Parisian crowd, who are now becoming more and more radical, have spoken about the sans-culottes, okay, or the menu people. They actually invade the king's palace within Paris. They find the king at a salon, okay, and they demand his power, that he withdraw his suspensive veto, because remember, he's been kind of making things difficult for legislation to pass, if I could simplify it as much as I can. The king's also pressured to wear a red Liberty hat. Okay, I think he even is forced to sing a song of the street people, but my God, it shows how much Louis has fallen. By the way, if this is led by a group of people, okay, menu people or sans-culottes, does anyone know the name of these events? Correct, okay. What happens? We've got early military defeats. Okay, remember the war's been raging since since April 20. Okay, the Assembly. It's very significant here is that they suggest that the nation is in danger. Okay, as you can see, and what's the consequence of that? So I want you to think similar to kind of martial law, but not quite yet, where there's a state of emergency. Okay, so all those aims of the revolution about liberty, having a fair trial and supposed freedoms have now been suppressed. Why is it justified? I don't know. That's where you're allowed your own interpretation. But nonetheless, we do know on July 11th is where the Assembly, the Legislative Assembly, declared that the nation's in danger, and they're now given emergency power. So you can see where this is heading. We're a little over halfway through 1792. Remember I spoke about how it's kind of like this bridging year between where we have a moderate France, okay, and then of course 1793 is the terror. All right, and there of course we've got the king forced to wear the red Frisian bonnet, okay, and join the people, be a pleb with the people. Rather portly looking Louis there, isn't he? He's having 1.5 bottles of champagne for breakfast every morning or so, so I've been told. Alright, so July, of course, July 25th is really important. Duke of Brunswick, he's the commander of the Austrian-German military force. He issues his famous Brunswick Manifesto. Learn a few lines from that. We've spoken about how it's received. However, I'm not going to say that's the most important event that's on this page. I'm going to say August the 10th, okay? Again, the king's Parisian palace is actually invaded, okay, this time by Parisians with Republican soldiers, okay. The king runs to the Legislative Assembly for protection, so it shows how how worried he was that his life actually in danger. At the time, there were Swiss guards, so ever since the original journée, okay, of June 20, there had been royalist guards that were there to protect the king. On this occasion, these guards that are there to protect the king, they are massacred. I wish I had the numbers on me. But this is so significant. The king has now completely lost power. And we look at the last event of 1792, you'll understand why this again is significant. Okay, the Assembly, they changed the rules in terms of like the king's power of veto, suspensive veto. Okay, and they established a national convention. Okay. Based on universal voting rights. So we can see, even though it's becoming more radical, at the same time, this whole idea of representation has now been expanded. So that is one tick that we give to this at this point in time. There we again see the king, and he's looking a little bit threatened or a little bit worried for his life. Okay, he wouldn't be. Look at those two mugs next to him. At any rate, we'll move along, please. We see at this point in time that Danton, who is now the new Minister for Justice, so he's kind of risen up to a significant position, and it's really important we watch the rise of Danton at this point in time. He issues a warrant for Lafayette's arrest. That's right, Lafayette, who has defected, to the Austrian side, or was about to defect and was captured by the Austrian forces. That's significant, but again, the one I've highlighted here is that there's the formation of the Extraordinary Tribunal. Why do you think I've highlighted that? Correct, because it's a forerunner to what we're going to see, Committee of Public Safety, revolutionary tribunals as well, which are very much associated with the terror. Royalist riots, in these regions that are not Paris, the rural regions, of France as well, or municipal as well. So these more kind of aligned with the royalists. Why? Because what's happened to Louis, he's been actually arrested and thrown in jail. Also, priests at this point in time are literally ordered to take the oath, or they are deported. There we have Danton, depiction of him. And famously at this time we see kind of the start of the terror, but it's not officially the start of the terror. There's different definitions for when the terror starts. Generally speaking, the year is 1793, but this is definitely a precursor. The September massacres happen over 3 or 4 nights, and we see that there's over 1,000 deaths, Most who are killed are clergymen, non-juring priests, refractory priests, or royalists as well, nobles and royalists. And they're killed by the crowd. As a response to this, September 20, the Assembly has been dissolved and it's replaced by the National Convention. And now we actually have more radical people that are involved in politics, even more so than have been involved previously, including, of course, Danton, Robespierre, Marat, and their very first session, September the 21st, they actually vote to get rid of the monarchy. You'll find that the very next day they unanimously declare to start time again and declare this to be year 1 of the Republic. So 1792 is year 1 of the Republic. There, of course, is a depiction of the September massacres. So this artwork appeals to more kind of traditional Catholic rural peoples as well. So I think it's kind of associated with kind of witchcraft here and this fear of cannibalism. And again, during the witch craze, the Jews were allegedly stealing firstborn Christian unbaptized babies for blood libel. We see body parts. You see how horrific they are depicted again. This little kid eating other kids, wearing the revolutionary colours there. So depiction of September massacres, a very significant event in France. And we'll finish the year 1792. Again, it's pointed out that what are we, about 3 weeks after the convention has been meeting, they get rid of all titles of privilege. And egalitarianism. So this is a tick. Citoyen. In fact, even Louis Capet. Citoyen Louis Capet. There's no longer kings, nobles, marquis, whatever. Everyone is citoyen. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And the year finishes off December the 11th with the king being placed on trial. So the king's April, he's declaring war, he's hailed. Long live the king. They were still yelling. We see June 20. There's a bit of a kerfuffle, and then of course the following month he's arrested, taken from his family, thrown in the Temple prison, where he kind of lives out his days until, of course, his trial's over, and then he has his head chopped off. Good times, So I think there we see Louis in the Temple prison saying farewell to his family. That one pulls on my heartstrings, poor fella. But look how far he's fallen. I apologise for the poor pixelation, but that's Louis XVI. At the start, as an absolute monarchist, in all his glory. Look what he's wearing, having a good time, but it all turns very bad for him. Thank you.